Welcome to Cinemophile, where we bring you the best in independent, documentary, and foreign films, and we talk to the people who made them. I'm your host, Mike Caspar, and you can find out more about the program by going to cinemophilepod.com. Amber and her four best friends flee Los Angeles for a girls' trip to Joshua Tree, only to find themselves unwelcome in a desert town simmering with quiet hostility as isolation sets in and encounter with aggressive locals becomes more threatening. Wow, what a very, very powerful film for a lot of reasons. Terrific acting. There's just so much here to recommend. It's called Find Your Friends. We're joined today by the director and writer, Izabel Pakzad. Izabel, welcome to Cinemophile.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
I know from reading a little bit about the film that this is in some measure of speaking based on something that you had experienced in your own life. At what point did you sort of put pen to paper? And at what point did you know you had this kind of a film that you wanted to make?
Yeah, it's very, very loosely obviously inspired by true events. Me and my best friends were going to Joshua Tree for just a fun girls' weekend, and it was our first time going. And from the moment we got there, something just felt off. We had a neighbor who kept appearing. We were having some weird interactions with some of the local men there. And it ended up turning into this crazy car chase in the middle of the night down the Joshua Tree Freeway, where this man was trying to drive me off the road, crash into my car. It was like truly the most traumatizing 10 minutes of my life. Like I've never been in real danger like that before. You know what I mean? Like, of course, as a woman, I've had some kind of brushes with danger before, but not in this capacity. So that was where the seed of the idea came from. And I was just thinking about, me and my group of girlfriends, and we had just graduated college at that point. And I was thinking about how we were sort of stuck in these weird party rituals. And in a way, that's how we learned how to socialize. And I just felt like the right thing to sort of marry with the Joshua Tree experience. And I really wanted to make a film about these young women who go out there and they're just kind of entering this new chapter of their lives and they're coming up against this real danger. So that's where all of the inspo came from. And then I kind of put pen to paper really quickly, or whatever, ended up writing the screenplay because I obviously had this thing happen. So I kind of knew where I wanted it to go, and I knew I wanted to take the seed of the idea and then turn it into something completely different in the end. So yeah, that was it. And I just went for it. I went with my intuition and wrote the thing and made it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, was it always going to be sort of a group of women? Was there always, because we see, I think it's five or six
Yeah.
women. I'm trying to five
Yeah,
women.
no, it was five
Yeah.
girls. Yeah, I always knew that because in the real experience it was like five of us. You know what I mean? And
Oh,
it was our first time in the desert. So there was a lot of that stuff that was kind of rooted in reality, that part. And I knew I wanted it to be a group of girls, and I knew I wanted it to be a group of girls that were just graduating college and entering this new chapter. That was sort of
yeah.
the whole intention with it.
You said something interesting,
Hmm.
well, you said a lot of things that were interesting, but one in particular was that you said, of course, women are encounter these sort of the sense of danger or real danger, which I it's horrifying to say, but I believe every word of that, that women are, in a manner of speaking, constantly have to be aware of the potential for danger and violence.
Yeah, exactly.
And at the very beginning of the film, we see them in a party and we see Amber. And Amber, to me, and I think this is a huge insight, but she embodies what the film is about and
Yeah.
how it's sort of a moment of having fun and an encounter with a man, it suddenly turns into something more and more dangerous for sure. And so you almost immediately see that Amber is the avatar for this familiar trauma. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but is that a good way to put it? Familiar
Yeah,
trauma.
I know. For sure. Yeah. That's
And it sets in motion everything essentially that the film's going to be about. And the reaction on the part of her friends who at first are, sort of reticent and kind of wondering
yeah.
what's going on. But they circle around her. They become a unit in that regard. And to see the outside world, the hostility, the unbridled hostility, way beyond what it should have been is something that sets in motion so much of the story and so much of the film.
Yeah.
Does that, I
Definitely.
just want to make sure I'm
Oh, of
reading the,
course. No,
yeah,
it's completely true. Yeah. I mean, that what happens in the beginning is foreshadowing what's to come later. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And again, I particularly like the cast. Can I just, before we get too far into this, because I think everyone is able to quickly delineate themselves from each other in terms of their sort of their bearing, their attitude, their outlook on life. And here, Bella Thorne, Chloe Cherry, Helena Howard, Sophia Ali, and Zión Moreno are all very, very good in their roles. And I remember Helena from Madeline and how terrific she was in that. She is the kind of as I said, avatar for so much of what this film is about. Let's talk a little bit about casting, just
yeah.
in terms of bringing these particular actors in. What were your thoughts in bringing them into this conversation?
Yeah. I was a fan of all of them, seeing them in their different films or shows or whatever. And it was great because I felt like each of these girls knew the kind of movie I was trying to make. They knew that it was bold. They knew that it was unapologetic. And I think that they embraced that and they like really welcomed that. And I knew that I needed actors that were, going to be that way, especially with this script. So that was really just like a blessing and just like so pleasant to work with people who like understand your vision and want to bring that to life. And I feel like all the girls did, and especially with Amber, especially with Helena. I mean, when I watched Madeline's Madeline, I was blown away by her performance. I was
Yeah,
like, wow, she's raw. She is real. She is just special. And Amber is obviously a very complex character. And, we really follow her through her journey of, what happens in the beginning and then through this trip and like holding a lot in and not feeling like she has a voice. And Helena did just such a good job embodying that. And then there's a turn, there's a real character turn. And it's on the page, it's hard to believe that someone can have basically a hard time speaking up to making the turn into going into the places the movie goes. And, Amber's character sort of spearheading that. So when Helena came into the picture, like I was like, I can't imagine any other actor doing this because she is going to make me believe every step of the way what
yeah,
Amber's feeling. And she really did. Like when I watched the movie, I'm just blown away because I'm like, wow, like especially because all the other girls are having fun. They're all a little bit trance of partying and sort of wrapped up in this bubble. And Helena's character, Amber, is really just waking up from the trance and is the only one who's sort of seeing things in a different way. And it's really hard to be in those environments and being the only one who's feeling that way. And as an actor and as a character, do you know what I mean? Like it's
yeah.
not easy. So I got so lucky with my cast. And they all delivered and they all brought something really different and they all really knew their characters well. Do you know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
great.
Well, and there's a tone to the film, and I think this is really what distinguishes the story in so many ways. This is almost I was I was thinking about this before we started, kind of
Yeah.
what was this film like? And I always hesitate to bring in like other directors' names into a
I know.
conversation because this is your work, but there's a there's a little bit of a Tarantino. There's also something about this sort of it's a raw emotional reaction. And I'm not sure if Tarantino's exactly the right way to say this.
I'm not gonna complain about being, you comparing me to Tarantino. That's a very high compliment for me. So
Well, in that once the sort of the tide turns in a certain direction in this film, it's all in.
yes.
And I think that's what I really appreciate about this is not something that we often see from a woman director, a woman story, but it turns into something of Inglorious Bastards in a sort of a way, in that they're not taking prisoners at some point in this film. And so that's why I really appreciate what you've done here, is you've made this film in a way that I'm sure this is the film you wanted to make. And
Yes.
I really appreciate that because
Thank
I
you.
can imagine there would have been, people maybe saying, well, let's soften the edges here a little bit. But the fact is we've seen this film in some version of it, but it's almost always been a male film told from
Yeah,
a male point of view. So let's talk
exactly.
about that just in terms of putting your stamp on this particular kind of filmmaking?
I love genre movies, and for me, something that I was really interested in exploring with this film was obviously some of the stuff that I talked about earlier, but also that these women, these young women can be vulgar. They can, embrace their sexuality and talk about their crazy sex stories. They are unapologetic, they are messy, they're not always lovable. But I feel like we rarely get to see female characters that can be this way without them being punished for it in movies. So I
Yeah.
really wanted to take that and turn it on its head and have these women be that way. And it is jarring for some people, and it should be like you should get used to this. Like women can be this way too. And they get to, take their power back in this sort of fucked up, twisted way, but they get to celebrate it. And I think that's really, really interesting to me and something I really was intentional about.
And you present this toxic male culture
Hmm.
in a number of iterations on the boat, in the desert, at the party, at the bar. It all manifests itself in this kind of degradation of women as the primary
Hmm.
component of this is to belittle and degrade women. And the other part is to do pardon me, whatever the they want to do
Yeah, exactly.
without fear of any consequences to follow.
Exactly.
And that's what makes this film so, I'll say, satisfying, is
Yeah,
so that it's yeah, and plus it has the advantage of giving giving women a way of seeing themselves as as someone who has agency over their own life and should not
exactly.
be afraid or ashamed of that. And I think that's a big component of this film as well.
True. No, yeah, thank you for saying that. It's true. It's completely true. I mean, we don't get to see that a lot, and it's really refreshing to see it. It's like I'm gonna live my life whatever and however way I want to, and that's just the way it's gonna go. And I'm not gonna live in fear because of all these brushes with danger at any corner I turn around.
They did a great job. I mentioned before we got started the cinematography, and this is wonderful. A lot of tight spaces, a lot of movement. There's a lot of things going on. It gives us a sense of getting to know these characters, but also puts them in these dangerous environments. And just a very well shot film. Congratulations on your direction. And also, is it Tim Curtin? Do I have
Yeah,
that
Tim.
correct?
Yeah, he's amazing. I mean, honestly, I saw his movies. He did a couple movies, one called Ashambra and the other one called Akiara, that both went to Cannes. And I remember my friend produced one of them, and he was like, I want you to watch this movie. I was like, okay. And I was like, who shot this movie? Like, this is insane. Like, the handheld work, the instinct, you could just feel his instinct and where the camera was going. And I was like, that is exactly what I want for my movie. Like, someone who's following Amber, especially and feelings. There's because Tim really is so deep and he's able to feel, where the camera should be to tell the story. So I think that, I mean, I was so blessed because he really just did such a great job and he understood exactly that. And I feel like this movie works because of that too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That feeling that we're really with the girls, we're really with Amber.
Right. We're in these sort of kinetic
Yes,
energy wise in that we're in the middle of that. And really,
exactly.
it really comes across in all phases of the film. So
Exactly.
congratulations on your work with him. Well,
Thank
congratulations on Find Your Friends. It is going to
you.
be streaming on Shudder starting on Friday, June 12th. And also theatrical run. Did we have?
Like a limited
Okay.
theatrical thing at some of the Alamo draft houses, June
Okay.
5th, June 6th, and then some screenings that are public online. So check my
Great.
Instagram page or something.
Again, the film is called Find Your Friends, writer, director, Isabella Pakzad, and also, once again, to your cast, Bella Thorne, Chloe Cherry, Helena Howard, Sophia Ali, and Zión Moreno. Terrific work. I've enjoyed their work before, and it certainly gives me another level of appreciation for their work and for your work as well. So thank you so very, very
Thank
much.
you. Appreciate it, Mike. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You have been listening to Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar, the place where you will hear from the best in independent documentary and foreign filmmakers. Please check out our previous interviews as well as upcoming interviews and special programming by going to cinemaphilepod.com. We are also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, searchable under Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar. Until next time, thank you for listening.